Hello, everybody. The topic that we are going to discuss today is poverty and international relations. Since 1945, we have witnessed 70 years of unprecedented official development policies and impressive global economic growth. Yet, the economic gap between many of the richest and the poorest states and the people remains high. While income inequality has decreased in some countries, in others it continues to rise as the wealthier become wealthier and the poor experience no improvement. Poverty, hunger, and disease exist in every part of the world, and women and girls continue to comprise the majority of the world's poorest people. Until quite recently, the discipline of international relations focused almost exclusively on issues of interstate conflict, military security, and war. Mainstream realists and liberals paid little attention to poverty, hunger, development, and issues concerned with human well being. The few who did engage with issues of poverty, hunger, development, and North South relations, particularly dependency theorists, received little attention. The mainstream understanding of poverty based on money and the idea of unemployment or underemployment has arisen as a result of the globalization of Western culture and the attendant expansion of global free market. It is an idea constructed by decision makers in the wealthy developed world that instills a particular socio-economic mindset, experiences, and thought. Thus, a community that provides for itself outside monetized cash transactions and wage labor, such as hunter gatherer group, is regarded as poor. The issues of development and poverty reduction have become increasingly prominent since the end of the Second World War. In the early phase, this occurred as decolonization failed to bring about economic and social progress in what was then portrayed as the Third World. At the same time that industrially advanced Western countries were experiencing historically unprecedented levels of economic growth. As global economic disparities widened, some argued that colonialism had given way to neocolonialism, political domination having been replaced by more subtle but no less effective economic domination. Others heralded the emergence of a North South divide. In this context, bodies as different as the World Bank and the IMF on the one hand, and a host of development NGOs and activist groups on the other, came to view the task of reducing the gap between rich countries and poor countries as a moral imperative. What is poverty? What distinguishes the poor from the rich? If poverty reduction is the goal of national, regional, or global policy, it is necessary to understand what poverty is and how it can be measured. However, poverty is a complex and contested concept. On the face of it, poverty means being deprived of the necessities of life, that is, lacking sufficient food, fuel, shelter, and clothing to maintain physical efficiency. In its original sense, this was seen as absolute standard, below which human existence became difficult to sustain. Absolute poverty is founded on the idea of basic needs corresponding to the physiological needs in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. However, the idea of absolute poverty may miss an important dimension of poverty. People may feel that they are poor not because they suffer from material hardship and their basic needs are not met, but because they lack what others have got. They feel deprived in terms of the standards, conditions, and pleasures enjoyed by the majority of their society. In this sense, poverty is a social and not merely physiological phenomenon. It is based on people's relative position in the social order. Relative poverty defines the poor as the less well off rather than the needy. The poor are often viewed as the victims of some form of social injustice. Poverty, in this sense, is something that happens to people, tending to demoralize and disempower even those thought of as the deserving poor. As poverty is portrayed in terms of deprivation and suffering, it suggests that poverty equals bad while wealth equals good. As such, the concept of poverty endorses a dominant materialist and consumerist ethic. This ignores the idea that voluntary poverty may have moral and spiritual benefits as advocated by some religious traditions, and it disregards the notion of sufficiency as endorsed by some within the environmental and development movements. The Orthodox view of poverty is a situation suffered by people who do not have the money to buy food and satisfy other basic material needs. An alternative view of poverty is a situation suffered by people who are not able to meet their material and non material needs through their own efforts. The monetary based conception of poverty has been almost universalized among governments and international organizations since 1945. Developed countries see poverty as an issue that affects and defines the less developed. Integration into the global economy is the solution to poverty. Under the conditions of economic globalization, poverty is found in both the wealthy North and the less developed South. A critical alternative view of poverty places more emphasis on lack of access to community resources, community ties, and spiritual and cultural values. Thank you. If you liked this video, please like, subscribe my channel Takshashila on YouTube.